So can you see the screen?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
Yeah.
okay,
Hello, sir.
okay. So if you can see the screen, I will start the lecture. Okay, so till now we have studied this first law of thermodynamics, and we discussed the first law of thermodynamics for a closed system. We discussed the second first law of thermodynamics for an open system also. Now we are going to discuss about the second law of thermodynamics. And first of all, I will give you some introduction, and let us see. The first law of thermodynamics states that a certain energy balance will hold when a system undergoes a change of state. So energy balance means, because we are talking about change of state, so you know that which equation is to be used for change of state, and that is equal to delta Q is equal to Tu plus delta W. So this is the equation, but it does not give any information on whether that change of state or process is at all feasible or not. So we do not know whether this process can occur or not. Okay, see, when we say a process can occur, that means it's a spontaneous process. It will take place of its own actually. Okay, for example, if I say that we have uh, tea in a cup actually. Okay, we have a cup and we have a tea which is available in this cup at a temperature of, let us say, 50 degrees Celsius, and the ambient temperature is, let us say, 30 degree Celsius. So we know by our intuition that the heat will flow from the tea to the surroundings which is at 30 degrees Celsius, and this heat transfer will take place till the temperature of the tea reduces to 30 degree Celsius. So we know about that. But if we think of the reverse process, that means if we have tea in a cup which is at, let us say, 30 degrees Celsius, initial temperature is 30, and tea ambient, this is also at 30 degrees Celsius. So, and I want, because I know that this is a infinite source of energy. This is the surrounding atmosphere. It is surrounding atmosphere, and it is immense source of energy. So, but I know that it can never happen that the heat transfer will take place from this atmosphere and the temperature of tea will increase to, say, 40 degrees Celsius or 50 degrees Celsius. So I know uh, myself, or you also know, that in which direction the process will occur. Now, when we talk about the first law of thermodynamics, it says that yes, during a particular process, there is heat transfer and work transfer, and they are equivalent in nature. Okay, but it does not tell us that whether that process is feasible or not, like the examples which I gave you. Now, spontaneous processes in nature occur only in a particular direction, that is in one direction. Okay, they will not occur in the other direction. Heat always flows from a body at higher temperature to a body at lower temperature. This is the example which I gave you here. Water always flows downwards, time always flows in the forward direction. Okay, these are spontaneous processes, they will take place automatically. The reverse of these never happens spontaneously. And we know that if we want that the water from the river should go to the top of the hill, then it cannot happen. Okay, it cannot happen spontaneously. We may have to go for some very, very big pump which can pump the water back to the top of the hill. The spontaneity of the process is due to finite driving potential. Now, this is an important term here, finite driving potential, sometimes called the force or the cause. Okay, you have certain cause because of which the process will occur. For example, when we say that heat transfer is taking place from tea in the cup. So there is a force. What is that force? The temperature in the cup was 50 degrees Celsius. The temperature outside was 30 degrees Celsius. So there is a temperature difference delta T, which is equal to 50 minus 30 equal to 20 degrees Celsius. And because of this temperature difference, the heat transfer took place from the tea in the cup to the surrounding. So this is the force, and the heat transfer which took place is actually known as the flux or the current or the effect. So basically, because of this particular force, which is delta T, there is a effect, and that effect is heat transfer Q. So similar to it, if we say that the potential energy of the water at the top of the hill is high, whereas the potential energy of the water at the sea level is low. So this gives rise to some sort of the force, which is in the form of difference of potential energy, and because of which the water flows from the top of hill towards the ground level or the river level or the sea level. Okay, so this is how the processes occur in nature. So all these processes are spontaneous. Now, these transfer processes can never spontaneously occur from a lower to a higher potential. So that's quite easily understandable. As I told you that we cannot transfer the heat from low temperature to high temperature, means from the ambient to the cup. Okay, this directional law puts a limitation on energy transformation other than that imposed by the first law. So, see, first law says that heat and work are mutually convertible into one another. So we said that cyclic integral of delta W is equal to cyclic integral of heat transfer. Yes, apart from it, apart from this definition, the first law doesn't puts any limitation on the process. Means it does not say that the process will occur in a particular direction. So that is basically the limitation of the first law of thermodynamics. That means we should know in which direction the process will take place. So it is because of the second law of thermodynamics that we can know in which direction the process will occur. Now, let me tell you, in this chapter, I will explain you second law of thermodynamics. Okay, but I won't be able to satisfy you in the sense that by because of which reason the process will take place in which direction. I will try to make you understand, because whatever we are going to cover, that's not sufficient to give you the complete explanation why the process will occur in that particular direction. Okay, and that is actually given by the chapter on entropy, which is not in your course. So you will have to bear with me. But whatever is stated in the second law of thermodynamics or in this chapter, there are certain other things that I would like to explain you. Okay, but I will tell you some reason why the process will occur in a particular direction. Okay, now let us see. When work is converted into heat, we always have, now just focus on this equation. It says that W is equal to Q. Means when the process is taking place in the forward direction, then all the work can be converted into heat. It means, for example, if its system goes under a process 1 to 2, and um, the work which is available from this process is, let us say, 100 kilojoules. Okay, the work which is available during this process is 100 joules. Then I say that yes, it is possible to convert this 100 kilojoule of work completely into say 100 kilojoules of heat transfer. Okay, this can be converted. You can get this much amount of the heat transfer from this value of the work transfer. Okay, if the process is taking place in the forward direction, means the work is converting into heat. So when we are converting work into heat, then whole 100 kilojoules of work will be converted to 100 kilojoules of heat actually. So that is the meaning actually. But when heat is converted into work in a complete closed cyclic process, then the value of heat transfer is always greater than work transfer. That means we are converting heat into work. So basically it means that if we have 100 kilojoules of heat energy, then from this heat energy, the probability is that you will be only able to get 40 kilojoules of work, and remaining 60 kilojoules of heat will go as waste. This will go as waste. So effectively, out of this 100 kilojoules of heat, you are getting only 40 kilojoules of the work, and 60 kilojoules of the heat is wasted to the surroundings. And this is also shown in this particular diagram, where we have a system here. This is the thermodynamic system, and we are supplying work during the process 1 to 2, and during the process from 2 to 1, means reverse process, the heat transfer is equal to q2 to 1. Okay, so because now the process is taking place from 2 to 1, initially it was taking place from 1 to 2. So in the process 1 to 2, there is certainly some work transfer. In the process 2 to 1, there is heat transfer. So because first of all we have supplied the work, so we can always say that whatever is the work transfer, that is equal to the heat transfer in the reverse process. But now let us see the next figure here. What we are saying, we are supplying heat transfer Q1 to 2 during the process 1 to 2, and during the process 2 to 1, we are getting the work W2 to 1. And in this case, we say that whatever is the amount of the heat has been supplied to the system during the next process, if we are getting the work, then this value of heat should be greater than this work. So effectively it means that if we are supplying 100 kilojoules, then this work can be 40 kilojoules. So that is how this Q1 to 2 is greater than W2 to 1. And a better representation of this is shown here in this diagram, where it is shown that we are supplying this heat Q during the process 1 to 2. During the process 2 to 3, we are getting a certain amount of the work, and during the process 3 to 1, certain amount of the heat is thrown out of the system. So this arrows show the direction of the work and the heat transfer. Okay, so it means, it clearly shows that if this is 100 kilojoules of the heat is entering the system, and here we are getting the 40 kilojoules of the work, and during the last process 60 kilojoules of the heat is going out of the system. And if you will try to see the energy balance also, the energy is also balanced, because this is the energy which is entering into the system, this is 100, and the leaving energies are 60 and 40. So the energy is also balanced. So this is possible, this is possible, but this is also possible. But what is not possible is that if you say that Q1 to 2 is equal to W1 to 2, then this is not possible at all. However, here it is shown that Q1 to 2 has to be greater than W2 to 1. So I hope this is clear. Let us proceed further. It says that work is said to be a high grade energy. The meaning of the high grade energy is that if you will try to convert this high grade energy into low grade energy, then the complete conversion is possible. The complete conversion is possible. So W, if we take work, if we take kinetic energy, if we take potential energy, if we take electrical energy, all these energies are high grade energies. High grade energy. Okay, all these are high grade energies. But if we talk about heat transfer, then it is the low grade energy. Why low grade energy? I will tell you. If I have these types of the high grade energies, work, kinetic energy, potential energy, and electrical energy, And if I want to convert these energies into heat, if I want to convert them into heat, then whatever is the amount of these energies, if I say this, all these, if I take individually, if I have work which is equal to 400 kilojoules, then if I convert it into heat, I will get 400 kilojoules of heat. If I take the same amount of the kinetic energy, even then I will get the same amount of the heat energy. I talk about potential energy, electrical energy. All these energy, if they are available to me in 400 kilojoules, from this 400 kilojoules, I will be able to get 400 kilojoules of the heat energy. But if I have this heat energy which is available to me as 400 kilojoules, then if I want to make work or kinetic energy or potential energy or electrical energy, then the possibility is that this will be only 100, 100 or 100. So don't think that means I am considering all of them together. I am saying that if it is 400 kilojoules, then work which can be available is only 100 kilojoules. Or second option is, if this is 400, then I can get 100 kilojoules of kinetic energy. Similar to this, if it is 400, then potential energy will be 100. If it is 400, electrical energy produced will be 100. So that is what I mean to say. So it means the complete conversion of low grade energy into high grade energy in a cycle is impossible. So you cannot convert the low grade energy completely into high grade energy. So that is the meaning of the statement here. Okay. For example, if you think about yourself also, we as human beings, okay, we also eat food. Now food has certain amount of the energy. It is in the form of the chemical energy. After the metabolism process, we get heat energy. Our bodies get heated because of this energy. But how much of this energy which we get from food, we are able to convert that into work? It's very less. Okay. Not only this, we also have to reject some of this energy. Means the food, even after being digested, we have to excrete also certain waste products. So that means the whatever is the energy which we are taking into our system, that cannot be completely converted into work. We have to reject some part of it to the surroundings also. So that is basically a law of nature which we have to follow, or which any machine has to follow. That means if we provide some energy to it, it cannot convert it. If, when I say it, if we supply some energy, I am talking about the low grade energy. Okay. Then it cannot be converted completely into high grade energy. Some part has to be rejected to the surroundings. So now let us focus on this particular concept only here. So now we are going to talk about a cyclic heat engine. Cyclic heat engine. See, heat engine is basically a very important concept in thermodynamics. So let us focus here. I will first of all go on this particular definition here. Then later on, I can read this line or this line. Okay. Now let us read it here. A heat engine is a device which undergoes a thermodynamic cycle and produces net positive work while exchanging heat with at least two thermal reservoirs maintained at different temperatures. So let us try to understand word by word what we want to say about it. A heat engine is a device. So device means it's a sort of machine which undergoes a thermodynamic cycle. Means thermodynamic cycle is to take place. So it means we will start from a particular point and then come back to the same point, and produces net positive work. So we are getting positive work from it. That means the machine or the device or the system is giving us the positive work. Means if this is the system, so I am getting positive work from here. Means the work is coming out of the system while exchanging heat with at least two thermal reservoirs maintained at different temperatures. So now there are two terms. One is the thermal reservoir. Thermal reservoir. So what is a thermal reservoir? I will let you know. At different temperatures, you can understand. So we have some reservoirs, two thermal reservoirs, which are at different temperature. So before I proceed to the complete explanation of the heat engine, let me tell you about the reservoir part. So let us see it here. Focus here. Now, what is a thermal energy reservoir? A thermal energy reservoir is defined as a large body of infinite heat capacity. So what we are saying, what is a thermal reservoir? It's a large body of infinite heat capacity. Infinite heat capacity means it has huge mass and it has some specific heat. So when we multiply both of this, it becomes heat capacity. So infinite means that this quantity is approaching to infinity, means it's very big, very big. For example, if I talk about sun, okay, if I talk about sun, its heat capacity is infinite, means that it is an infinite source of energy for us. Okay, now let us proceed further. Which is capable of absorbing or rejecting an unlimited quantity of heat. So it can absorb unlimited quantity of heat. You can throw lot of heat to it, you can take out lot of heat from it without suffering appreciable changes in its thermodynamic coordinates, particularly temperature. So the temperature should not vary actually when you take out the heat or when you throw the heat into it. So for example, if we talk about the atmosphere surrounding us, now what happens? We are continuously throwing engine exhaust into it. Okay, engine exhaust. So do you think there is appreciable change in its temperature? No, it's an infinite source of the heat capacity. So if the temperature of the surroundings is 30 degrees Celsius, throughout the day the vehicles are moving, they are throwing the exhaust gases at high temperature into it, but the temperature of the surrounding does not vary or change much. So basically, a thermal energy reservoir is a large body of infinite heat capacity, large body of infinite heat capacity, which is capable of absorbing or rejecting an unlimited quantity of heat without suffering appreciable changes in its thermodynamic coordinates, particularly temperature. So let us go back. Yes, now you have understood that what is a thermal energy reservoir. So here the word came. So I will once again read this definition. A heat engine is a device. Okay, it's a system, it's a machine which undergoes a thermodynamic cycle and produces net positive work. So I showed you this particular diagram. Net positive work is coming out from the system while exchanging heat with at least two thermal reservoirs maintained at different temperatures. So let us see here. So we have two thermal reservoirs. One is here, which we are showing it here. Let us say the temperature here is TH, and this is the another reservoir, and let us say its temperature is TL. So H stands for high temperature, and L stands for low temperature. Okay, and what is happening? This is a reservoir. This is a reservoir, and from this reservoir, what we are doing? We are taking certain amount of heat. Let us call this heat as QH. Okay, we are withdrawing heat from here. We are taking out heat. Somebody wants to join, just wait a minute. Yes, so we are taking QH amount of the heat from this. Now what will happen? Will its temperature change? No, it's a reservoir. Its temperature is not going to change. It will remain TH only, even though we are withdrawing this heat. Now this is the device here. This is the device or the machine. I'm calling this as a device or machine. Okay, rather it's basically this box which is drawn here. This actually is known as CHE. CHE means cyclic heat engine. This is the cyclic heat engine. Okay, so what is the function of this cyclic heat engine? It uh, it interacts with two thermal reservoirs. One is this thermal reservoir, other is this thermal reservoir at low temperature. Okay, so from one thermal reservoir, it is taking this heat QH, and to the other thermal reservoir, it is rejecting QL amount of the heat. Okay, so it is interacting with, this is the number one reservoir, this is the number two reservoir, interacting with at least two thermal reservoirs. It's written here, you can see it here, two thermal reservoirs at different temperatures. So these are at different temperatures. So I can say that TH is greater than TL. Okay, and what we are getting? We are getting the work from here. This is the work which we are getting. Okay, rather I should write it as W net. That is what we are getting. So I will once again explain you about it. Let me show you the diagram here once again. So this is one of the reservoir. This is maintained at temperature TH. I can say that it is 600 Kelvin. Then I have another reservoir here. Let us say it is at 300 Kelvin. And here we have a cyclic heat engine. Cyclic heat engine. This cyclic heat engine is interacting with the high temperature reservoir, and it takes QH amount of the heat, and then it produces W net here. Now this is, there is a fluid which is undergoing a cyclic process here. Okay, this is undergoing a cyclic process, and because of which we are getting the W net, and then it is rejecting certain amount of the heat here, which is I am representing as QL, and this is rejecting to the low temperature reservoir. Okay, and it is producing net positive work. So this is the positive work. So this is in whole is a definition of cyclic heat engine. Okay, and so there are two thermal energy reservoirs. One is at temperature TH and other is at temperature TL. So two thermal reservoirs are there. Then we are getting certain amount of the work, and it is because of this cyclic heat engine. Okay. Now there are two more terms associated with the cyclic heat engine. One is source and other is sink. Now what is source? Source is from which you take heat. Okay. Source is which supplies heat. Which supplies heat. And what is a sink? Sink is to which system or cyclic heat engine throws heat. Throws heat. So here if you will see, then you can observe here this heat engine at 600 degrees Celsius Kelvin is supplying heat to the cyclic heat engine here. Okay, and this cyclic heat engine is throwing QL amount of the heat to this low temperature reservoir. So that means this is sink and this is source. Always remember that source is from which gives heat, and sinks is what, to which we throw heat. Okay, see the direction actually. Source, from the source the heat goes out, from the sink we throw the heat into the sink. So that is basically the definition. You should never confuse yourself that source is at high temperature or low temperature. So source can be either at low temperature or it can be at high temperature, and same is valid for the sink also. Sink can also be at low temperature or high temperature. However, for this cyclic heat engine, we have shown that the source is at high temperature whereas the sink is at low temperature. Okay, but it will not be so everywhere, in every case actually. Okay, now I will explain you something more about this cyclic heat engine which I have drawn here. Now what is this actually? how it is producing this net positive work. So I will go on this slide actually.
Excuse
Now,
me, sir.
yes,
Sir, since you said heat moves from high energy to low energy, so how can source be of low energy when heat doesn't move from low energy? It always moves from high energy to low energy.
see actually source and sink. Source reservoir is one from which we take the heat actually. Okay, you always remember that only. Don't worry about the temperature at which it is available. Okay, we will come to it later on. You will be able to understand what I mean actually. But let me proceed in the chapter a little bit more, and then somewhere you will come to know that source can be at low temperature also. Okay, for the time being we have shown it to be at the high temperature. Okay, and both source and sink, they are they have huge amount of the energy available with them actually. Okay, so for example, if I talk about the sun, in that particular case there is sun is having a lot of energy with itself. So whether we draw any amount of energy, its temperature is not going to decrease. Similarly, the surrounding atmosphere, sink, if I say sink, then I can say sink could be sea also, it could be a river also. Okay, so these are also actually sinks where we can throw the heat, but they are infinite sources of energy, and there is a possibility that this sink can be considered as a source for us, and that we will see later on. This sink can also be converted to source. Okay, source and sink is basically from where we draw the energy or to which we throw the energy. That is the basic definition. It doesn't have to do anything with the temperature. Okay, so now I am going to tell you, I have drawn this particular. Hello. So is it clear?
Yes, but I want to ask something there.
Yes, tell me.
Can both of the temperature to be zero, sink, the temperature of sink, or
Source can be zero.
yes, one of can be zero?
uh, you are coming to actually third law of thermodynamics. See, third law of thermodynamics says that it is impossible to achieve 0 Kelvin temperature. Okay, you cannot achieve 0 Kelvin temperature. Yes, you can achieve, but you will have to do infinite number of operations actually. Okay, so that will come after second law of thermodynamics. So for the time being I will say yes, no, it is not possible to achieve 0 Kelvin actually. The scientists are doing lot of experiments, but they could not achieve 0 Kelvin, which is the absolute zero temperature. Okay, so source or sink cannot be at 0 Kelvin. Okay, all right. So I wanted to say you that this is the high temperature reservoir. Let us say it is at, once again I am considering it to be 600 Kelvin. Okay, and here I am taking certain amount of the energy from it, and here I have that cyclic heat engine which I have now enlarged. I have made a very large circle here to show the cyclic heat engine, and here this is the heat which is thrown out of the cyclic heat engine to, let us say, low temperature TL, which is 300 kelvins. Now what is inside this large circle? This is the cyclic heat engine. Okay, and I would like to tell you what is there inside. So first component, I will say that this is B. B stands for boiler. So what we do in the boiler? In the boiler we are supplying the heat. Okay, and in the boiler we have water, and we are converting, when we are supplying this QH amount of the heat to this water, it gets converted to steam at high temperature and pressure. Okay, at high temperature and pressure, and then this steam is sent to a steam turbine. This is a steam turbine here. And you know, we discussed about the turbine part in the steady flow energy equation also. The turbine gives us turbine work, WT. So basically this heat, when works on the blades of the turbine, the work is produced from the turbine. And here we have steam, utilized steam. At this point we have already utilized steam. This is utilized steam, which has low energy content. Low energy. Okay, so this steam is to be condensed. So what we do, we have a component here which is actually known as condenser. It is represented as C. So C is condenser. Okay, and in this condenser what we are doing, we have, suppose here we have this water goes into it. This is cold water, and here we have hot water which is coming out, and this steam enters into this condenser and comes in contact with this cold water, and then this steam here gets converted here into water. It could be hot also. Okay, and this cold water, after the steam gets converted into hot water, this also comes out as the hot water. Okay, after this we have a pump here. This is a pump. This is a pump. It is represented as P, and you know to the function of pump is to increase the pressure of the water. It increases the pressure of the water, and this is then sent to the boiler. Okay, and because the pump is increasing the pressure of the water, we supply certain amount of the pump work, WP. So that means now if you see here, you can see about the energy, various types of the energies which are entering or leaving the system. So this is the first one. This is entering into the system. This is the second one which is leaving the system. This is the third one which is leaving the system, and this is the fourth one which is entering into the system. So we can write the energy balance here, and that energy balance will be equal to QH. This is entering the system plus WP, which is entering the system, and that should be equal to energy which is going out, WT minus plus QL. So this is the energy balance, and I can say that WP minus WT is equal to QH minus QL, and this term, this is the okay, one minute, it should be WT minus WP. Okay, WT minus WP. So this is the network that we are getting, and it will be equal to QH minus QL. So effectively, if we see, so we can say from the cyclic heat engine we are supplying QH, rejecting QL, and here out of it we are getting W net, which is actually given by WT minus WP. Okay, is it clear? So basically whatever there that is happening in this circle which I have drawn here or shown here, this circle, okay, this is a cyclic heat engine, and inside it I have told you about a thermal power plant. So basically this cyclic heat engine is nothing but a thermal power plant. Now what are the parts of a thermal power plant? The parts of a thermal power plant are boiler, then steam turbine, then we have a condenser, and then we have a pump. These are the four components of a thermal power plant. These are the main components. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Any questions on it?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Can you repeat the process?
Okay, I will repeat the processes. So just a minute. I will see some slide. Yes. Once again, we have a big circle here. First of all, we have a boiler. After the boiler, we have a steam turbine here. After the steam turbine, we have a condenser here. After the condenser, we have a pump here. And once again, it's going back. So what we are doing, see how the boiler will function. The function of a boiler is to produce the steam from the water. So in boiler, we supply the water, and this water is to be converted to the steam. So that should happen in the boiler. So how this will happen? How the water will be converted to steam? We need to supply certain amount of the energy. Okay, so that energy is coming from this high temperature reservoir, which is at temperature TH. Now you may ask a question, in practice, from where this heat will come? In practice, what we are doing, we have a big furnace. Okay, in this furnace, we are burning the coal continuously, and from this coal, we are getting this QH. So by burning the coal in a thermal power station, we are getting the heat which we supply in the boiler. So what the boiler will do? Boiler produces steam at high pressure and high temperature. The pressure could be as high as say 180 bar, and the temperature could be as high as 540 degrees Celsius. And this is this particular point I am talking about. After the boiler, this is the temperature and pressure of the steam. And when this high pressure and high temperature steam goes into the turbine actually have number of blades. Okay, there is a shaft, and on this shaft there are number of blades which are mounted on it. And when the steam flows over these blades, its heat energy gets converted to the kinetic energy of the blades. Okay, so basically the shaft which is there inside the turbine starts rotating, and this rotation of the shaft is converted into work. Here there is a coupling here, and here we have a generator. Okay, from this generator, because this shaft is rotating, the generator also rotates, and we get the electrical energy. Okay, so naturally when the steam which was at high pressure and high temperature here, when it leaves the steam turbine, its pressure reduces, its temperature reduces, because it has given its energy to the blades, and these blades are actually known as the rotor. Actually, this is the rotor of the turbine. Okay, and this rotor is responsible for converting the heat energy into the mechanical energy or the kinetic energy, which is further converted into electrical energy in the generator. After that, because this pressure and temperature of the steam has been lowered, it is useless for us. So what we do, we have a component which is known as condenser. So what is condenser? Condenser, you can understand by the name itself. It has to condense that water. It has to condense that steam actually into water. So for condensing that, we should supply some cold water into it. So we have the cold water which is entering here in the condenser. So cold water goes in and hot water comes out. So it's about the water actually. And the steam which was entering here into the condenser, now when it leaves the condenser, it is not steam, it is actually hot water. Now this, see, when, as I told you, the pressure of the steam when it was entering the turbine and the temperature was high, but as soon as it leaves the turbine, it has been lowered actually. So the pressure here is still low. The pressure is still low. So we need to do the pumping. By pumping, we increase the pressure of the water, though the temperature is still low. And when it goes into the boiler at high pressure and low temperature, we supply the heat here. Okay. And then what happens? Then it means once again we are converting this water into steam. And what is happening in this condenser? This cold water, what is it doing actually? This cold water is nothing but this is that heat which has been rejected. Okay. This is the heat which is rejected to this cold water actually. So you can say that this is a river which is adjoining to this power plant, and this power plant is taking the water for cooling the steam into water from this river. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, one thing I will tell you after this is clear. I will take one more. I will talk about one more thing, and then I will leave the class. See, there is a term which is known as efficiency of cyclic heat engine. Now, when you define the efficiency, efficiency is always defined as W net divided by heat supplied. HS stands for heat supplied. Now, if you see this particular diagram here, I will tell you, here we are supplying WP, here we are getting WT, this is QH which is going into the heat pump, and this is QL which is coming out. So I told you that W net is equal to WT minus WP, which is also equal to QH minus QL. And this equation is based on the energy balance only. Okay. So what is W net here? You can see what is W net. W net is equal to WT minus WP, and which is also equal to QH minus QL. So in place of W net, I can write QH minus QL. And what is the heat supplied? Where we are supplying the heat? This is the heat which is entering into the system. So it is the heat which is being supplied to the cyclic heat engine. So heat supplied is nothing but QH. So efficiency is equal to 1 minus QL divided by QH. So that is the efficiency of a cyclic heat engine. Now you can see it here. When we have drawn this diagram, it is clear to us that if we are supplying say 100 kilojoules here, and if we are rejecting say 60 kilojoules here, then only we are getting 40 kilojoules. This is the or you can say this is could be 50, and here let us say this is 10. So effectively you see what is the energy which is going in. It is 100, it is 10, so 110. And what is the energy which is going out? 50 plus 60, 110. So energy balance is conserved actually. So energy is conserved. Whatever is going in is equal to the whatever is coming out. So this is how we can say that the efficiency of a cyclic heat engine will always be less than 100%. It can never be equal to 100%. You can see what is the value of QL. QL is equal to 60. What is QH? QH is equal to 100. So it is equal to 1 minus 0.6 is equal to 0.4. So efficiency is equal to 40%. So efficiency is represented by a figure which is actually known as eta. Is it clear? Is it clear?
Yes.
Repeat yourself.
Yes.
Okay, okay. All right.
Repeat
Yes.
yourself.
So shall I leave you?
Repeat yourself. No.
Tell me.
Repeat yourself on efficiency.
No, I could not get.
Efficiency.
Yeah, efficiency.
Yeah.
You want to know about efficiency?
Yes, sir.
See, efficiency is, once again, I will tell you, efficiency is given by output divided by input. So what is the output of this cyclic heat engine? That is the network. And what is the input? What is the form of the energy that we are supplying? That is, we are supplying the heat, QH. So this is the formula for the efficiency. Okay, efficiency, for example, if we talk about ourselves, we are eating food. Are we doing the work proportionality? In proportionality to that means we are working less. So we always say that our efficiency is less than 100% because the value of W net is less than QH. In the previous example, I said this is the amount of the heat which we are supplying, and this is the amount of the work. This is WT, and here we are supplying also certain amount of the work. So the net work which we are getting is actually 50 minus 10, which is equal to 40. So you see it here. So if I put it here as 40, and heat which we are supplying is 100, so the efficiency is only 0.4, which can be said as 40%. So that means 60% energy is going waste. We have to reject this amount of energy, otherwise the system will not work. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, sir.
Okay. So what we will do, I will take the attendance, and then you can leave the class. Just wait a minute. Yes, I have taken the attendance. Now you can leave.
Yes. Thanks, sir.